to start.
Good evening. Tonight is Thursday, October 30th, 2025, and I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the South Brunswick Board of Education and to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Statement of advance notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, also known as the Sunshine Law, was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting the interest is discussed or acted upon. The primary purpose is for board members to discuss and vote on board business. In accordance with this provision of this act, the board secretary has caused notice to this meeting 48 hours prior, including date, time, and location, to be posted in the South Brunswick Public Library and board office and filed with the township clerk. It is also posted on the district website. Roll call, Mr. Pulowski.
Ms. Julie Ferrara.
Here.
Ms. Alicia Khan.
Here.
Mr. Raja Krishna.
Yeah.
Mr. Barry Nathanson. Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Present.
Dr. Smitha Raj.
Here.
Mr. Rajesh Soni. Mrs. Deepa Karthik. Ms. Laura Hernandez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's meeting agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Mitchell and Dr. Raj.
I just need to make a quick addition. We're going to add legal matters to our executive session.
Okay. Approval of board minutes and executive session. I need approval of the board minutes and executive session for October 9th, executive session and board minutes. Can I have Mr. Krishna and Ms. Khan? I have a second, okay. So I need a motion to move into executive session. Okay, and we're going again.
We're going into exec session again. Dr. Raj, second.
This is Mika.
Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell. Okay, motion to executive mention, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of South Brunswick hereby moves into executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10-4-21, for the discussion of personnel matters and legal matters. Be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in executive session can be disclosed to the public at any such time as the matters have been resolved. Formal action may be taken at any meeting. And let's go.
Let's go.
Do you need a selfie over here?
Motion.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Can I get a motion in a second to return from executive? Ms. Ferrara, motion, Ms. Khan, second? Okay, with that being, is our student rep is not here tonight? That means I'm up. Okay, so the report of, there's our administrative team again. We're seeing the administrative team, yay. There's Pete. The report of the president. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with the board, which I actually, and this is totally for us. Oh, wait, the student rep's here. Okay, good. Back up. We'll have the report of the student rep first. I'll give her 1 second to sit down.
Hi everyone, sorry for the delay. I hope you're having a great evening. So let's kick things off with some school news from the high school. So on October 16th, we celebrated our homecoming football game alongside the Think Pink lunch event for breast cancer awareness. Both were a huge success. Our student government councils created a float for the SBHS Disney Adventure theme. It was a close race, but the senior class was awarded the Spirit Cup. McKenna Caffrey was crowned homecoming queen and Ayush Chabolu was crowned homecoming king. On October 23rd, members of the Student Advisory Board, which focuses on student concerns, met with Mr. Varela. Together, we addressed concerns raised by student senators during the October Senate meeting, as well as input from our Viking Leadership Alliance members. Looking ahead, November is dedicated to honoring our veterans. Student Council is decorating doors and creating other displays as a way of saying thank you to our staff veterans. November 11th is Red, White, and Blue Day in honor of Veterans Day. School clubs has also officially started, and we're looking forward to an exciting school year. Now, let's move on to athletics, where our teams are doing amazing. The girls' tennis team wrapped up their season with an impressive 13-4 record and placed second overall in the GMC tournament. Both the boys and girls cross-country teams won the Red Division Championship as well as the GMC Cross-Country Championships. The girls' gymnastics team placed fourth at the GMC Championship meet and also hosted a fundraiser to support the Jackie Pang Fund, which raises awareness for dementia through t-shirt sales. Special recognition also goes out to Morgan Anderson Thomas, Carmen Graywall, Kayla Herrera, and Nithya Warrior of the girls' soccer team. They all received the all-white division honors this season, which is a major achievement, highlighting them as among the 22 top players in the division or across the GMCs. The girls' volleyball team also has exciting news. Shraddha Deveri and Reagan Winkler have been nominated for the A-White division team, and head coach Casey Kelly earned her 100th career win when the Vikings defeated North Brunswick. That wraps up all the updates I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for your report, honey. Okay, so I just have one really quick thing. At our last regular meeting, not Monday nights, but our last regular meeting, there was something on our consent agenda that I just totally overpassed. Because to be honest, I was focused on Monday night's meeting and getting our new superintendent in here. So I need to give honor where honor is due. So one of the things that was on our agenda to vote on, our consent agenda, was the resignation of our assistant superintendent, Dr. Evelyn Mammon. So I did not want that to go unnoticed, and I wanted to thank her for all of her hard work. And we will miss you. And East Brunswick is in for a treat, and we wish you the best. And we know you're going to do great things for those kids.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. But with that being said,
Thank you. Oh my God. You deserve it.
and that ends my report for tonight. So on to the superintendent's report.
So, quick report this evening. Up first, I have our Education Foundation. Marty and Bobby are here to talk a little bit about the Education Foundation and our 5K 1 mile excursion through South Brunswick. There she comes. There she goes. Flash.
That was just practice because I didn't say on your mark, get set, go.
Yeah,
Forgot about that part. Do I have your attention?
you do.
I'm Bobby Vinder. Oh, yeah, gotta wipe that sweat off. I'm Bobby Vinder, and I'm here to let you know about the 5K and 1 mile fun run they were having this Sunday, November 2nd at the high school. Thank you, Mr. Pulaski and the board, for giving me a couple of minutes to speak to you tonight. Here's what you need to know. You can register online at efsb.org until we say, go, at the starting line. Pretty much at the starting line until we are there, registration is open. The cost is $15 for the 1 mile run and $40 for the 5K. What time, you may ask? 8 a.m. is when registration begins. 9:10 is when the 1 mile fun run and walk begins. And at 10 a.m., we have the 5K. Remember, we do turn our clocks back, so you get an extra hour of sleep, so you get lots of energy to come and do the fun run and the 5K. New this year, awards for top male and female South Brunswick district staff members. All of you. So I hope to see many of you out walking or running on Sunday. The weather's looking good for outdoor running, so I hope to see you all there this Sunday, November 2nd. Whether you walk or run, it's sure to be a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Also up, we have our parent, well, not here this evening, but we have a parent academy happening Wednesday, November 12th at 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Crossroads North Middle School. Please, parents, if you're in the audience or out there listening in the World Wide Web world, you're invited to an evening where we're exploring AI in teaching and learning. We have a project graduation, South Brunswick High School Craft Show, Saturday, November 15th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the high school. So a couple of things happening in the education world. We have a state testing, field testing that's begun for the new state assessment for students in grades 4 through high school. This includes an adaptive version of the NJSLA and NJPGA. They added an A acronym at the end of those, NJSLA-A and the NJGPA-A, and the A reflects a transition to an adaptive format beginning with the official spring administration, which provides a detailed student's performance report that we typically receive. So the state's also transitioned to a new assessment provider called Cambium for these tests, and the current field testing does not generate student scores. Instead, it ensures that both the state and the district are fully prepared and that the spring assessment is reliable and runs smoothly. Like all districts in the state of New Jersey, we're learning through the process. We have encountered both statewide and local challenges, but the team is working quickly to resolve them and strengthening our readiness for a spring administration. So the next piece I have real quick for the board is a little item on redistricting. So as you know, our school district's been working to address our enrollment challenges that are coming our way currently as a result of some of the new construction in our township. The committee leading this work will be at a board meeting in November, our next board meeting, with more comprehensive update. But in the meantime, just a quick review of where things stand and provide you with a timeline for where we're heading forward. Around the start of the school year, we learned of some limitations with our transportation software. While it was not impossible, but the challenges complicated the work with the committee, and the process of vetting models and solutions became more labor intensive, requiring manual calculations. The team working on this has been absolutely at it night and day. In addition to the changes in both my seat, superintendent seat, assistant superintendent, curriculum instruction moving forward, Evelyn moving on, we've considered a timeline and some planning efforts, and we've been working diligently behind the scenes to keep us on track with a timeline. But with these changes, everything kind of floating around, it's kind of put a little monkey wrench in all of our little project here. So our progress is being made steadily, and we're a quick overview here of what's happening in November. So our core team's going to reconvene. Our community stakeholder meeting will be held, and in November we're going to update, and we're going to give the BOE, the Board of Ed, a meeting on November 20th a good update. In December, the core team meeting is going to meet again, reconvene. Our community stakeholder team will again come together. And we're going to continue in preparation for a recommendation to the board to be made by our targeted date of January of 2026. So the challenges due to growth and the ongoing budget constraints remain significant. You know, we're still in an S2 world, so we're trying to figure out exactly which model best provides the best educational environment while at the same time creating efficiencies, if any, can be found. I'd just like to remind everyone that there's a link to our previous communications on the district website, and there'll be more to come at our next board meeting next month in November. And that would conclude my update.
All righty. Okay, so next up, we have our district goals and our assessment results that are going to be presented to us, and that will be presented by Ms. Suzanne Luckborn and Mr. Pierre Routine. Come on down.
So, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here tonight with Mr. Peter Routine, who is our Director of Special Projects, but one of his responsibilities is oversight of our state-mandated assessments. There you are. So annually, we are required, within receipt of our student individual scores, reporting out publicly to the Board of Education and our public. And so that is what we aim to do this evening while we are together, recognizing that not everyone is as familiar with all of the different assessments. We're going to provide you with a quick overview, and then we are going to share with you the results that we have compiled as a result of some of our analytics behind the scenes of what was provided by the New Jersey Department of Education. So I think important to note is that there are 4 standardized assessments given over the course of the school year, and they vary by grade level and by measure. First is the Access for ELL, which is for our students who are new to the country and or learning English as a second language. They are assessed if they are in kindergarten through 12th grade and participating in that program. Online assessment, some of it is paper in some of the younger grades. The DLM, Dynamic Learning Maps, you'll see results for that. That is administered to our students in the special education program, but a very small percentage of students are eligible for that test. And the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which assesses the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in English language, arts, and mathematics. You can see the grade levels tested here on this chart. Important to note that in 10th and 11th grade, it varies a little bit depending on which course the student is enrolled in at our high school. And finally, the NJSLA Science is a culmination of science standards at those, think of those as those pivotal transition marks. It's at the end of grade 5, 8, and 11. I think important to note for all of you is that while the assessments here allow us to look at how we're doing trends within our curriculum, our delivery of instruction, it is not the only measure that we rely on in South Brunswick for making decisions about students. We use multiple measures here, not only these standardized, but we have our own district assessments and other screeners we use to garner the whole picture of student performance. Important to note, at this time, while we're required to report out, the state of New Jersey has not yet released subgroup data, meaning race or program participation, that we can compare to tonight. So what you're going to see is what we were provided and able to report out on. That includes students in South Brunswick by grade level, by their race or ethnicity, and by program participation. So the first one we're reporting out on tonight, as I said, was this WIDA Access for our multi-language learners. And I think important for you to know is that South Brunswick's number continues to increase. This year we have 344, well, spring of 25, we had 344 students participate in that test in the K-12 band. 100 of those students were with us for less than a year. So these students might have enrolled in September, they tested in February. If they arrived in December or January, they tested in February. So they were with us for a very short amount of time. 44 of those students, so 44 of the 344 students, achieved a score of 4.5 or higher, which means they are expanding their language acquisition and eligible to exit the program. So just to acclimate you here, we are required to show two things when we report out publicly. One, the N, the number of students that participated in the test administration, and then we're required to report out on their proficiency levels. How did they perform? So this slide shows you the past 5 years of enrollment, and you can see that we have steadily increased on the far left, the 2020-2021 school year, that 284 to the present day, 344 when this test was administered. There are several domains that our students need to demonstrate their understanding of the English language. And some of those domains are then combined to show us the students' literacy score, their oral language score. And as you can see here, our students this past year had a number of students in those developing, expanding, bridging, and reaching bands. The next thing we're required to report out on is the race of the students. One of the things that you all need to know is that if there are fewer than 10 students in a group, we aren't allowed to publicly report that because it would be identifiable of individual students possibly. So you can see here, this is students in grades K through 5. We've chose to present elementary and then 6-12. So you see K5 here. You see in the chart to the right of the chart, the number of students that participated from those specific groups that we're able to report out on. And again, you can see their proficiency there on the chart. We are also required to report out on the program enrollment of our students. So we are required to report out on if they are part of special education services, if they are part of an economically disadvantaged group of students, or if they are in general education. So you can see here that we've shared those graphics for you. The far left is our special education, with the middle being the economically disadvantaged for those of you that are sitting near the back. So the N is the number in the chart, and then on the graph, that is the percentage in each of those bands. For those of you watching at home, these slides will be made available on our district website for you to refer back to if you wanted to take a closer look. Let's wait until we get through all of them, but we'll remember that you have one on the ELL. Okay, 6-12. This is the breakdown for our students by race. As you can see here, same races were reported out. You can see white we did report because it was above that threshold of 10 students. You can see that some of our students are not yet at expanding or bridging here, but I think important to note is that in the progression of when a student comes in learning our English language, it takes several years for them to become proficient. It is very rare that a student comes in and exits the program within that first year. This is again that same slide showing grades 6 through 12 and their program enrollment. Important to note, fewer students in the 6-12 in comparison to the K-5. We have more students in the elementary school that are part of our multilingual program. One of the things that we often get asked, that has been a question the board will ask from time to time when we present annually, is about, okay, those scores are great, but how did the same students do over time? And so with our data warehouse, Linkit, which is fairly new here in South Brunswick, we are able to really drill down our data that we receive on our students. And so this graphic here takes all of the students who are part of our ELL program in the 23-24 school year, who again tested in the 24-25, which meant they continued in the program. They were with us for 2 consecutive years, and you can see their progress over time. While they were tested in a different grade level content, you are still able to see that we are seeing more students entering that expanding and the developing bands of the chart. And important to note, if you are a 4.5 in that expanding, that is where you might be considered eligible to exit our program. I want to thank Mr. Decker, who is our world language supervisor and our supervisor of the ML program. He works with his team of educators to support students in targeted intervention over the course of the year. His teachers are responsible for administering that assessment. They begin as early as February. Their window is a little bit quicker than the NJSLA window. So that concludes the Access for L's results that we wanted to share with you, and we're going to move on to the DLM, which is the Dynamic Learning Map. And as I said earlier, this is an alternate assessment to the NJSLA. This is for a very small group of students who need to participate in an alternate measure to show their proficiency. Our special education teachers with the special education supervisors work on preparing students and administering this assessment over the course of the school year. It is technology-based, and it focuses on some essential elements related to those areas of English, math, and science. So this chart isn't percentages. This represents the number of students in each of these areas. We have students can range here from emerging to advanced. We want to see our students at the target or advanced, of course, but approaching shows us that they're making progress to where they need to be. Again, the numbers for science are less because this is only administered in grades 5, 8, and 11. And you can see here that we had a few more students in the area of each subject with the bands there. 13 and 13 are approaching the target. We had more in ELA at the target, as you can see there. So we're going to move on to the NJSLA, and I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Ratine so that he can share with you these results, as these are the tests that he has direct oversight in working with the schools on.
Hi, good evening. Before I get into sharing the results, I wanted to share some of the people that are behind making sure that this state assessment, which is large in terms of number of students and staff that are involved in it, those that really play a large role in this. The largest group is our school test coordinators. I would say that most of them, if not all of them, are in the back over there and are really responsible for making sure that every student who needs to test, tests, that a schedule is formed, and they'll probably be the ones to say that that might be the biggest challenge, is changing schedules in a building to accommodate testing in a multitude of ways, and then doing things like makeup testing, making sure devices are ready, and a whole slew of other things, including communications to families and so on. So I want to thank all of them, as well as our tech department, because this is all done electronically, except for a handful of students who may do paper-based to make sure our devices are ready. So thank you to all our test coordinators in the back over there. If you could just give a wave, I know you don't like standing, none of us do. Just give a wave if you're a school test coordinator. Thank you. I'm going to start off with the English Language Arts part of NJSLA. This slide here, we're going to start by showing you the number of tested students. From left to right is the grade level, then the number of students tested in the spring of 2024, number of students tested in spring of 2025, and the difference between those two. With the decline in enrollment, the difference was predicted, and there can also be some other factors that account for that as well. As you can see, Students in grades 3 through 9 are assessed in English Language Arts for NJSLA. I'll leave this up for just a moment. I'm going to transition into our first set of data. This is specifically for elementary grades, so grades 3, 4, and 5. These are all of our students who tested in those grade levels in the district. So on the left side, you're looking at all of 3rd grade for English Language Arts, and then you follow across to the right, 4th grade and 5th grade. And this type of chart, again, you'll see throughout my part of the presentation. From the bottom up, you'll notice that those are the levels that they're referring to. So I won't read them all, but you could see starting with not meeting on the bottom, which is red, all the way up to exceeding on the top. When we see green, we are pretty comfortable with that. Yellow, we certainly want to look into, but certainly the orange and the red is where we want to spend a lot of our time and effort. I want to take a moment to show you something that we do with this data, and we're not going to show a slide like this every time that we go through. This is an example of what the management software can do that Suzanne was talking about, Linkit. So this is an example of work that happens at the building level with building leadership and our content supervisors. Here, we are tracking a cohort of students. First as they assessed as 3rd graders, and then the following year as 4th graders. Then you can easily narrow in on specific students from here, and this is what happens often at the building level and again with supervisors. This slide in particular, kind of like Suzanne's before, represents students who were in both. So they were with us in 3rd grade and 4th grade and tested. So it is the same group of students. I'm going to shift over to middle school and show you the results there. So again, same like elementary school on the bottom, you'll see the grade levels, 6, 7, and 8 going across. So these are all of the students in middle school for ELA who tested. And I'll just leave this up for a moment as it is similar to the elementary one, as well as the color coding for the different levels. So just to clarify, these are different students. This was last year's group of students in the spring in those grade levels, not following students along each year. And then our 9th graders for English Language Arts, I'll leave this up for a moment so that you can see their levels as well in terms of proficiency. All right, so here come a lot of numbers, but I know it's sometimes the interesting ones too, to see a little bit of a comparison. So there's gonna be 2 slides back to back just because if we tried to fit it all on one slide, it would just be so small to look at. So we're gonna show you a comparison of South Brunswick to itself over 2 years, as well as South Brunswick to the state. This is overall in the 2 years as well. So grades 3 through 9, again, those are the ones that test in ELA for NJSLA. And this slide shows levels 1 and 2. That was the lower 2 on that bar. So that was not meeting and then partially meeting. So if you just follow across, because we'll have a few of these and I'll just explain it on this one. Again, after grade level on that far left column, we're looking at 2024. So not the last spring, the one before it. You could see district results there for the grade level in ELA. And then you can see the state results in ELA that year. Then you follow along to the next one, where we're looking at 2025 for the same thing, not meeting, level 1. And you'll see the district percentage of students who did not meet, and you'll see the state percentage of students who did not meet. And then you follow that along for the 2024 again in level 2, and then again 2025 for level 2. I know there's a lot of data up there, so I'll just leave it for a moment so you can digest it. But again, you're seeing the 24-25 comparison. Both you can compare state and district. So I know I mentioned that these are the not meeting and partially meeting, so these are where we want to see our lowest percentages whenever we can here in these two. These are the remaining three levels: approaching, meeting, and exceeding. So I'm not going to walk you through all of the columns because they match what the previous slide was. There's just an additional set because we have three levels showing on this screen. So again, from left to right, you have 24, 25, and they keep repeating with level 3, then level 4, then level 5 for all of the grades. I know it's a lot of data, and sometimes summing them up and such is what you're doing in your head. Again, this will be online for everyone to review. I do want to point out a little point of pride here, if you're back there or anyone here from the middle school. 7th graders, point of pride here, 82% of our 7th graders met or exceeded in ELA. Pretty impressive. I'm going to move on to our subgroup and look at that. So our first one here is staying with ELA, just like Suzanne had said in terms of reporting out, reporting by race here. So this is for all of grades 3 through 9, the entire district, how we performed by each group that has at least 10 students that we report out or more. So if you follow from left to right, you see we have 5 groups that we are able to report out on, and we're following this same 5 levels from not meeting all the way to exceeding. Bottom, not meeting, to top, exceeding on those bars. And then the next is our report out by program. Same thing, this is all students that tested in ELA grades 3 through 9. All right, I'm going to share the mathematics results next. This concludes the ELA part. So it's going to be similar, so it might go a little bit quicker because I won't have to explain some of the way that we formatted. So as we transition into the math results, going to start off by showing the participation numbers to begin with. So if you're a numbers person and you saw the N for ELA, let me explain why they're not the same. Some students can be exempt. In addition, in middle school in particular, students are taking end-of-course math. For example, if a student in 8th grade is in Algebra 1, they are going to take the Algebra 1 NJSLA and not be counted in the grade 8 math NJSLA. Math assesses the course you are currently enrolled in, and ELA is always associated with your current grade level, irrelevant of the course you are in. So this is 3rd through 8th, and then you'll see now our next one goes a little bit more into what I was just saying about we have students in middle school and then of course in high school taking some of the algebra and geometry courses here. So this shows our participation numbers here. We did expect some changes due to enrollment. The other reason is that in 2024, with compliance requirements, we ensured that every high school student had a state attempt on record. We made some slight adjustments to enable us to be a little bit more strategic with that this year as well. spring of 2024-25 as well. And same as ELA, I'm going to show you by levels in general. Math will be a little bit different when we get to middle and high school, but for elementary, grades 3 through 5, you'll see all of elementary here by grade level going across, and again, their percentage of proficiency in the entire grade for math. I'm going to transition over to our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. So this is our middle school performance. Now, here we start to see some changes in 7th and 8th grade, notably, math performance. And again, with a number of those students, they are enrolled in and test beyond their grade level math class. And again, they may be in algebra or geometry, which is why they wouldn't be testing in grade 8 math at that point. That'll be shown on the next slide. So this next slide here will show a little bit of what I was just saying. So here are specifically our middle school students who are beyond 8th grade math and in Algebra 1 or geometry. And if you follow across, you'll see 8th graders, Algebra 1, then 7th graders, Algebra 1, and then 8th graders who are in geometry. So you can probably start to gather that 7th grader Algebra 1 is a little bit, in an advanced track when you look at it in that way. And I'm going to switch over to the high school. And the high school has a little bit different as well, just because of some of what happens in the middle school. So if you follow across here, 9th graders in Algebra 1, then we have 9th graders in geometry, 9th graders in Algebra 2, and again, because of all of those things that happen in middle school, that's why there's so many different 9th grade students in those different courses. And then we are showing 10th grade geometry and then 10th grade algebra. Students in high school have to test in at least one of their math classes when it's basically considered their first math class for either Algebra 1, geometry, or Algebra 2 when they are in high school, regardless of what they took in middle school. All right, here come a lot of numbers again. So just again, want to be able to show you, there's 2 slides for this. This is level 1, students, percentage of students not meeting, and then partially meeting. And this is the 2-year lookout for South Brunswick and for the state, and you can compare both ways. I want to be clear that when we look at these, we are not following students on these. We are just following the overall group. And then the levels 3, 4, and 5. And then looking at our district by race, in grades 3 through 10, all of math by race for the N of at least 10 or more. And then by program. This concludes the math portion of the reporting of NJSLA results. We're in the home stretch of NJSLA results, science. So our science results is what I am going to share as our final NJSLA results. The first I'll start with, like I did before, is the overall participation, where again, like Suzanne had mentioned on the second slide, Grades 5, 8, and 11 are participating in NJSLA Science. And in terms of results, here are the results by grade, not by level like math and ELA, since only 3 grades in the district are assessed in science. So unlike ELA and math, science has 4 levels of proficiency instead of 5. Red is below, orange is near, the lighter green is proficient, and darker green is advanced proficient. Do want to make something clear to everyone. The assessment occurs at the high school pretty much at the same time that AP exams are taking place. So in terms of AP exams, 50%, 57%, just to give you an idea, of the junior class is taking AP exams at the same time they're taking the NJSLA Science. So just keep that in consideration. And then gonna show it by race. This one's a little bit different. Just gonna show you, we wanted to do this on purpose so that you could see again what Linkit is able to provide and just kind of break it down by grade level. It's very small. I understand those of you in the back may not be able to see. So on the bottom is by race, Asian for the first 3, and it's by each 3, Black, Hispanic, multiracial, and white. And then within each of those groups, the first one is 5th grade, the second one is 8th grade, and the final one is 11th grade. Again, bottom is below proficiency, and the top darker green is advanced proficiency. And we want to show you this again just to give you a little bit of the idea of what we use Linkit for, and we can disaggregate it even more from here, but this gives you an idea. And then by program, simply looking at ELL, free and reduced lunch, and special education. Free and reduced lunch is also the other way we say economically disadvantaged. That concludes the reporting out of our NJSLA results. I'm going to turn it back to Ms. Luckborn.
So one of the things I wanted to make mention of is that we do have our leadership team in attendance this evening, and those that weren't able are watching from the live stream. The team here uses this information to facilitate conversations at the building level in supporting their students so that we can start to move that needle from those students that you were seeing in the red. We're not happy with kids in the red. We want to see all of our students meeting those grade level expectations. So we are tasked with drilling down further to see who is that student, what do we know about that student, how are we programming for that student, and what are we doing to target instruction or interventions to meet that individual student's needs. And that is the work of the leadership team, facilitating those conversations with the classroom teachers to work with those particular students. And really, Linkit has been a game changer for us in the sense that at the elementary level, we have instructional coaches who facilitate conversations with grade level teams to kind of look at that information and say, what does that mean and what can I do instructionally to support students? It allows us not only as a tool to look at those standardized metrics that we presented tonight, but it allows us to look at benchmarks that are measured up against specific standards so that we can really hone in on where a student may need additional support. Conversely, when you talk about our students who are meeting or exceeding, we have conversations about what are we doing to keep those students challenged and engaged in the educational program. And that is something that we always have our eyes on as we're working with our students. So in addition to reporting out on the data that you saw this evening, we are also required to kind of share with everyone, what are we doing? What are we doing to support our students here in South Brunswick? And so just to highlight some of the things, first of all, the teacher support. You cannot underestimate what that connection with the adult in that classroom, working with that student, really focused on those students' needs, can do to increase performance. The connections are very important. Our instruction is individualized, very targeted. On occasion, we will cluster students. We are very deliberate, even with our placement process of students in the elementary, putting students that have similar skill sets together so that the teacher can provide targeted instruction for those students. And then finally, one of the things that we wanted to highlight here, if you've joined us in previous years, we put this slide up here to show you some of the programs or strategies that are happening in each of our sites. This year I chose to bold for you the ones that I wanted to really highlight that are kind of a little new or different in what we are doing here. So first, on the left side there, you will see the K-3 Literacy Universal Screener. We now are using a metric in K-3 with our literacy that is nationally normed. So it allows us to look at how our students are performing, and then we overlay some of our local assessments to identify students that might need something a little different or more of something in terms of instruction. In addition, we creatively used our entitlement grants, ESSA. For those of you that are familiar with the Every Student Succeeds Act, we use some of those funds for professional development or consultants. And so we had sheltered instruction, professional development for classroom teachers to work with a specialist in the area of multi-language learner instruction. And we had over 40 teachers in the cohort this past year that were trained that are able to bring that back to their classroom environments, not only to work with our ML students who you see have not performed as the same as their peers, but also to benefit all students in those classroom settings. And so we're quite proud of that and continuing that work in the upcoming year. In addition to our special education programming, one of the things Mr. Morales and his team have done is we have expanded one of our special education program offerings that we have had in the elementary at Brooks Crossing and have brought that up to Crossroads North. And so we have opportunity there for our students in that environment and program. In addition, we have Wayfinder, which is our social emotional learning curriculum, because the academics can't happen if the whole child is not tended to and their well-being is addressed as well. So we had this in our middle schools last year and have moved that up to our high school. And we are conducting additional sessions at the high school level as part of an extended homeroom throughout the course of a month. They might have one or two more opportunities where it's very focused on this. In the elementary schools, we have implemented the school-wide elementary reading program in some of our special education classrooms in grades 3-5, which are smaller groups, and this gives them a reading program that they are using specially designed for that population of learner. In our middle and high schools, the HAP and Excel periods are being revisited in what are we doing and how do we maximize that time with students to provide additional support for students that need it, much more than just a place to go to catch up on your homework. It's really a little bit more focused that the team here is really working to say, how do we redefine that? And finally, the INRS process is the Intervention and Referral Services process. That is one of the mechanisms by which students can receive additional support in South Brunswick, and there is a multidisciplinary team. Think of it as you have a teacher, maybe you have a counselor, maybe you have a supervisor, you might have a behavior specialist. They all come together to support a student that might need additional help within the classroom setting. And so we've spent a couple of years now really looking at our process and redefining it, and are in a much better place with that. So at this point, that does conclude the portion where we were planning to share with you our achievement results, participation, and some of the things we do as a district to support our learners. Before we go on to the district goals portion, we wanted to pause here just to see if there were any questions. I will share with the public watching and those of you in the audience tonight, our board received these slides in advance of this evening and had an opportunity to review and ask questions. We also shared it with the Board Education Committee earlier this week and really got some good feedback from them and questions during that portion. But I want to open it now to see if there was anything that sparked, and if you all don't mind, I know Rajesh had something back on the ML slide that he wanted to ask about first.
Yeah, I think that's okay. That was more, I saw general ed in ELL, so I was a little confused, but that's all right. Not important. I got this.
Thank you.
A question about HAP. So we talk about how we're redefining it. Can you be a little bit more specific with that?
So in the past, it was one of these opportunities where students were scheduled for that, and it really was a place where they can go because they didn't have a class during that period. They were actually scheduled for a HAP, and they would use that time to catch up on assignments. But the intent is to really look at, can we utilize that with the staff in that environment to match them to some students that might need extra help, or offer the option that a student who's assigned to HAP could go back to that teacher to watch that lesson again or get extra help. So it's really kind of using that in a less traditional way, but more targeted.
So we're in the process of making that
Yes.
happen right now? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. Smitha?
Yeah, so the 11th grade science assessments, so do they cover physics, chemistry, and biology, all the three of them in that assessment, or how does that work?
Yeah, think of those science as kind of that culminating at the end of a period of the science curriculum. So 5th grade is not just on 5th grade standards, it's very comprehensive. Dr. Mammon, as our curriculum expert, is there something that I'm missing on that you would add?
It's general science. It's not necessarily physics, biology. It's like all of it all together. That's part of the problem too.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
wondering.
It is not science subject specific.
Yeah, that was what I was wondering too.
Yeah.
So it's hard to.
It really is hard to have that be
A
an
marker of
indicator
student,
of
yeah,
how
yeah,
we're
yeah.
doing. It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Mammon. Julie?
Just wondering if you have any data on testing accommodations, since testing can be difficult for quite a bit of the students we've talked about this evening. Do we have any data on how well our students do with testing accommodations, or whether it's helping?
We can pull that data. We haven't for the reporting purposes, as it's not something that the state requires us to report out. We certainly can disaggregate that in terms of the accommodations that students receive.
Like the number that who use accommodations, and I just think that testing itself is difficult for certain students, and
It
not
absolutely.
just one category of students, but certainly it's reflective of some of the statistics we see here today.
It is, yep. And I'll say this, that our new assessment that Mr. Pulowski was actually mentioning, the NJSLA-A, that we're field testing now, which I know was not your question, we've already even encountered some challenges for some of our students that require some accommodations. And for us, luckily, we're in the early stages of that where it doesn't count and we reach out to the state. But back to your question, we do have the ability, yes, to go back and see if there are accommodations that stand out in terms of students that maybe have challenges related to the accommodation in particular. Yes.
And whether they're beneficial in overall change in grading.
Yeah, and then individually, then we're talking about the child study team and the case manager that would review that specifically with the child, but we can definitely look to see if there are trends with them as well. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it's important to note that some students are eligible for accommodations on the assessment to make it more accessible. Rajesh?
Yeah, just a quick one. I was looking and reviewing the 2-year comparisons for results within South Brunswick. Again, I personally am not keen on comparing with state because that's not accurate according to me. So if I just focus on 2 years, I see a lot of, again, there is a lot of noise, but a lot of trend where level 1s and level 2 numbers are increasing, and in some same ways, the level 3s and 4s are reducing from last year. Is there any specific trend you're seeing? I know that it's a mix, obviously, but I see a lot more level 1s and level 2 increasing versus the 4s and 5s.
In ELA or math, were you on a specific slide?
I am on right now on ELA, but I saw similar on math too. But I didn't pick math because it is confusing.
Yeah, while Suzanne's pulling that, I do want to say that that is though sometimes where the state comparison is helpful because the tests and sometimes the format does change. And so it's not that we're always looking to say like, are we performing better than the state? We would expect to in South Brunswick, but seeing where the state goes is really helpful for us because we do know, and those in the back know that that's a challenge in terms of the test was a little bit harder or a little bit different this year. So that is one component of it, of why we do look at the state on that part. But I know what you're saying about we don't always need to say, oh, we're performing better than the state.
Yeah, for a lot of things we compare within our county and our neighboring districts, so I would apply the same principle here.
Yeah, so I don't have that right here in front of me to give the specifics on that, Rajesh, but I would share with you that is something we will take a closer look at, to look at the numbers too, because not only percent, but the number of students that have moved bands and actually disaggregating, because the one that you saw there was all students, but now parceling apart, like what is the program that student's part of? Is it, our special ed is in those numbers as well? So really taking a closer look is something that we can do in-house to better understand and to answer your question of like, is there a trend that we're seeing? And I would imagine my supervisors in the back are already spinning their wheels about saying, what are we gonna look for next to be able to make some recommendations? So thank you.
Fair?
So thank you for.
I had one question. Actually, I have two, but the first question was, I saw that on grade 3, I think it's on slide number 15 or 14, on the grade 3 ELA scores are a little bit lower than the math scores. Is it because that in grade 3, you're not using as many word problems and things like that, you're just using numericals? Is that why the grade 3 NJSLA scores for math are much better than the ELA? I'm trying to understand why is it?
I would suggest that comparing ELA to math at a specific grade level, we're gonna pull curriculum apart and try to disseminate why students are doing poor or not as well or in math versus LA. But I think one of the things that you'll see from what we have listed as goals kind of gets us into how our different groups perform.
And I would share, Deepa, on this particular slide, when you are a first-time test taker, there are definitely things that we need to understand about our third graders when they're taking their first standardized test, be it ELA or math. But when you look at this and you can see how students typically do in third grade in comparison to by the time they've done this for multiple years, we start to see that progress over time. But to Dave's point, when we get to goals, that is some of the work that's happening with our leadership team.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to, I am comparing the same cohort of students, grade 3 math, grade 3 ELA. That's all I'm asking. Why is there a difference in the same year? Number one. The second thing I wanted to ask is, you had the slide where you have the ELL, economically disadvantaged and special ed for 2024-2025 in comparison to the earlier years. For the economically disadvantaged cohort, how have we performed? Do you have that data?
You want to compare last year's economically disadvantaged to this year's? We didn't have that in this presentation.
But we do have the information that we could take a look
So
at.
just to see a trend.
Yeah, we do have that. We could take a look at
So
that.
for example, if here in this slide, not to belabor the point, 17% was not meeting in the economically disadvantaged bar. This is on, I don't know what slide number this is, but whatever that slide is, if you can pull that up, it's grade 3 to 10 throughout by program, ELL, it's that slide. So if 17% was not meeting in 2024-2025, did we see an increase in that percentage or did we see a decrease in the last 3 years?
We can find, yeah. We have the ability to do that. We're not required to do that here, but we do have the ability. We'd have to look at keep in mind these are different students in different grades testing, right? It's not the same cohort in what we're presenting here.
See, you have to see the same.
And the N.
That's my assumption is that. You have to say cohort. Is it the same cohort? The data, is it for the same cohort over the years?
This is just for all students, 3-9, who took the test last year.
I'm talking.
It's not a cohort. It is a cohort. It's not a
Yeah.
comparison of the same kids.
Okay.
Where the other slide I showed you earlier was, remember we showed one that said, here's the example of when they were in 3rd grade and then how they performed in 4th grade. We can do side-by-sides for each of those groups if we dug down deep enough. But we didn't need to do that for tonight's presentation. But I
understood.
hear that you're asking that's something we'd be curious about.
Yes, I'd be curious about that, yes.
Right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one piece about your first question, which is the data only came in recently. And so we are required to report out at a Board of Education meeting within a very short time frame the data, which means that a lot of those staff members in the back of the room, supervisors and administrators, haven't even had the chance to fully dive into some of the things that you're asking, that we're asking too, and that we will. So the questions are definitely noted as well, because over time, we're gonna have even more data coming in from the state that we don't have, but also a little bit more time to analyze it at that time as well. But it's been a short turnaround that we're required to present the data out at the board, to the board meeting.
Understood, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Maybe a follow-up for you and your team. As I understand, we have quite a few intervention programs. So maybe as a follow-up, if you can kind of summarize maybe in the next board meeting or offline, what programs are working, what not, and what needs some improvement, and how can we as a board support so we can move students up a band level?
I'll give you one quick example, but yes, there might be more that we can share. The one would be this school-wide elementary reading program within our elementary special education programs. That is a shift for us. So this is the first year we're using it in the upcoming school year, but it was because we noticed a trend that our current reading instruction in those environments was not as successful as we would want it to be. So that's just one example of where we've made a shift based on those trends. If that helps.
Huh? We need, we can try for it. If we don't know what we don't know, we don't know. So at the most it gets rejected, but I think it would be better for us to know what and how much, so we can try.
Yes, I mean, I'm sure Sherry is the over there. Language arts supervisors, K-5, we fight all the time about, we wish we could, all K-5. That way, we know, right, that we are not only using those resources that we know work. We know it works. It's just, we don't have the money to get it all for everybody, the training, the time. So we've been doing it a little bit at a time. My guess is, when we look at 3rd, 4th grade next year, for instance, those are the kids who have had foundations. You will see a difference, because we know foundations is working, but again, we didn't start foundations. We started it in our schools that get Title I funds. We used that first, and then we brought others on board and kind of, so that type of stuff, it's gonna take 3 to 5 years, but we'll take the money and then we'll, you know, like those things work, we know.
Yeah, here is my recommendation, so we don't go back and forth. Decouple the money part. Let's focus on and simplify. My brain is not smart. I don't understand that much, right? So what works, what we want to do, and then we as a board and community, we can share. If we can do this to do this. So, and then we can figure out. So decouple the money. Let's just focus on what can we do to improve our students and go up band levels. That's it.
Okay.
So I think
I'll get it for you.
And I think that is actually perfect segue, what you are both discussing right now, because that is one of our goals as we move forward this year. So Dave and I want to transition you. You saw the achievement, and part of our responsibility is to share out what our district goals will be as we launch this new school year. I know it's the end of October, but we're here tonight sharing with you data and our goals. And so I want to first, we would be remiss if we didn't circle back to all of the good stuff we did last year. So just a quick reminder, a walk down memory lane of what our goals were in the previous school year. We had 3 of them. 1, safety and security. One of the things I would highlight there is that you all as a board approved our secondary code of conduct that went through some revisions this past year as we aligned with more restorative practices. So that was part of our first goal. The second, you worked tirelessly as a board, as did Mr. Pulowski and his office, on that fiscal responsibility, balancing a budget during very tumultuous times with lack of state aid and the S2 funding formula catastrophe. So you know that we worked in that area, but an offshoot was really looking at our need for possible reconfiguration or redistricting. And then the disproportionality, you heard me talk about one of our program strategies was the INRS rebrand, but also the implementation of the universal screener. That was another thing that I think our elementary language arts supervisor had been wanting for years. And it was a very high ticket item in terms of funding. And fortunately, when the state mandated it, they put out the focus grant. It gave us an opportunity to apply for that and receive some funding to help offset. So that is where we are at based on the previous year. We just thought it would be important to remind you and kind of fill in some of the gaps of what we've done in the past year. Moving forward, that first goal, curriculum, program, and data literacy, is exactly what you're asking us to continue to do, to continue to look deeper at the data, not only for individual students and what they need, but also programmatically. What is working for us? What is not working for us? Where do we need to shift our course and make adjustments? And so that is part of our first goal. We have one, again, that relates to the fiscal responsibility, efficiency, and fiscal planning, and then program growth and facilities. We have 3 slides that follow, so we're coming down the home stretch. Those 3 slides will give you some action items that we have identified under each of these goals. So I'll speak first to this curriculum, program, and data literacy. Use data-driven cycles to refine our curriculum, to monitor our progress, intervene early, and scale effective practices. And you can see our action steps with how we intend to measure that. First of all, a meaningful data analysis cycle. We are actively working on a district data handbook of when those cycles should be, what would be included in them, what are our metrics, how do we identify students for various services within the system, the assessments and the tools that we're using, and then finally that last piece about the SEL, right? Integrating that into our curriculum, not an add-on, not something additional we're doing. It should be part of our fabric and our instructional practice within every setting here in our school district. And then we have some examples of what we would be looking at as the measures to show our progress towards that goal.
So our next piece that we were looking at was the efficiency and fiscal planning, when we're going to ensure growth and aging infrastructure, resource allocation managed strategically, sustainably, equitably. Let's be honest, our facilities right now are in a really nice place. Like when you walk into South Brunswick Township schools, our walls and our floors and our classrooms are gorgeous. The things that are failing are the things that we don't see every day, which would be our roofs. Our one roof alone, just the roof that wasn't even the entire roof at at the middle school south, was a $3 million job. We don't have $3 million in our accounts anymore to do roofs. So we're looking at establishing a reserve or an action plan that's a multi-year budgeting framework so that we don't get into these volatile situations and we can put monies aside. The issue that we ran into, and we're continuously running into, is that in an S2 environment, we're constantly looking for ways to do things more efficiently, and at the end of the year, trying to put some funds back into our savings account. What's happening is, at the end of the year, we look to put those funds in that savings account and they don't exist. because we're such a tight budget over year after year after year. We're really looking for ways and some things to do that's going to create some revenue. So we're back to the revenue generators. One of the revenue generators that I'm currently engaged with, a township down in South Jersey, Brick Township, just approved solar canopies over parking lots. And the way this is designed provides the district revenue source, not SRECs, not solar give back money, or not solar discounts on your energy bill, but actually you lease your parking lots to an energy company. They put up the solar, they pay the district. So we're still constantly in my office going after revenue generating opportunities, whether it be in healthcare with our health center, or whether it be with solar and the next generation of what the solar look like. And then what we have to do is we have to align that budget and that program reviews so that we ensure that what we're doing, whether it impacts, I always tell people every time we talk about revenue generators, everything that we do to generate revenue, or every efficiency that we create, goes back into the classroom. It goes back into the school. It goes back into implementing the next big project, you know, and using it to build what the next energy efficiency, or what the next efficiency in the district would look to do. So how do we get there? One of the things that we have to really get ourselves heads wrapped around is creating a zero-based budget. I can remember 8 years ago, I walked into an elementary principal meeting and talked about zero-based budget, and I think I lost everybody at hello. And it was just like, that's not how we operate. And we walked away from it. I made friends with everybody over the years, but it's one of those things we really have to talk about, starting at zero and building a budget from zero, and what that looks like for your program. It's a big to-do in South Brunswick, but we're at that point in our budget cycle to where we have to find a way to create either savings in current program, like I said earlier, generate revenue. So we're still looking at efficiencies and fiscal planning. The next program, measuring outcomes, is blank. Measuring outcomes is blank for a reason, because we're in this right now. We're evaluating our school capacities, utilization, redistricting scenarios, and updating enrollment forecasting. We do it every day. We're considering the housing developments, the demographic shifts. This is all now. It's been happening for the past 2 months. Peter Ratine, VC, and Rob Sears, that crew has put in so many hours. Our measuring outcomes will be next year when we open up school, and our class sizes are somewhat normal and leveled across the district, and we're ready to open the school year with a feeling of consistency and not the unknown. We're not at Brooks Crossing saying to ourselves, well, it looks like that classroom's gonna have 27 kids this year. You know, we got 2 more moving in, and we said we'd move them to another district, but they live right next to a school, right next to the school. You know, those things, we're living this right now, and we're in the midst of it. So our measuring outcomes will be next year when we open up. You guys can throw up this goal and say, hey, we did okay, or hey, there was a reason you didn't do measuring outcomes because everything's a train wreck and we didn't figure it out. But that's not going to happen, because I know the people that are working on this piece have it together, and it's going to be an amazing year next year. So that's our last goal, is to just redistrict and reevaluate, and constantly forecast and work with our township to figure out where the developments are going. And we're putting together a plan that allows the district to be able to be flexible for the next few years. You know, it's with our transitions of superintendents and everybody moving in and out, assistant superintendents, we looked really intently at, like, what do we want to do? Is it one plan for 3 years and kind of assess, or is it a plan for 5 years? And we're working on those intricacies right now, and we're going to present a really good plan come January that allows us to survive classroom and educationally, create some efficiencies maybe, but maybe not, but more so for the kids in South Brunswick to create that awesome educational experience. So that's why those measuring outcomes are blank. So we're in it.
Yeah, but think about that. It's how we're going to accommodate that growth, how we're going to communicate that, and how we're going to implement it really, or how we're going to be able to measure our ability to accommodate this growth.
Yep. So those are some goals that we're looking to streamline, put in place, and accomplish all of the things that we talked about earlier in all of our achievement and test data. So that's it. That's our presentation. If you have questions on goals, just email me directly. We can figure those out. All righty? Thanks, everybody.
Well, how do you follow that up?
Yes, that's a lot.
I know how we're following it up. But first, I want to say that was a great job. I mean, that so much work goes into that. And it was very clear and all those numbers. And I know that looks like a lot, but it was very clear and concise how that was broken down. So thank you. Thank you for all of that information. And now, to follow that up, we have Ms. Blair Eisman and Mr. Peter Ratine. We're bringing back up again for our annual HIB report.
10 minutes or less.
This will be quicker, promise. So, good evening, everyone. I'm here with Blair Eisman, Director of Programs and Professional Development. And the state requires districts to assess their proactive measures specific to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So this is done through a self-assessment each school completes at the end of the school year. It's done by the school's anti-bullying specialist, along with input from the stakeholders on the school climate team. And then the district will submit those scores to the state in the fall. Ahead of that submission, we're required to share the scores with the public at a board meeting, which is what we're doing tonight. So we're going to present the HIB self-assessment for last school year, so that's July of 2024 through June of 2025. I'm going to share some information to help give context to what the assessment is. So here you can see what the goal of what the self-assessment is. We really use this to help determine how to strengthen our work. Intended to help the schools and district evaluate efforts, implementing anti-bullying, the Bill of Rights, and opportunity for schools and districts to reinforce and strengthen HIB prevention and intervention programs, policies, and practices. So what is the self-assessment? This to me is one of the best ways to look at it. It's 8 core elements. These are the 8 core elements. There's pieces within these, but these are the overarching ones. So I'll just leave it up for a moment for you to read. And then within the self-assessment, each core element has a number of indicators to take a deeper dive into our practices. So here we're showing you one example of core element 1 is the example here, along with one of the indicators. In this case, it's indicator A. A score is then given to each of the core elements that Blair will be sharing with you next. To give you an idea, I know it's small, but within just this part of indicator A, you have that first element, and then in addition to that, there's an and. You did this part, and then there's an and you did the other part, right? So I'm not reading them all because we have these available in the 38-page document that's linked there for the board, and then it'll be on our website, as well as the more in-depth part of the NJDOE website for this. But the reason I mention that is because within each element, it's not just a checkoff, it's checkoff and then and did you do this? So that's why you'll see some of the scores will kind of vary little bits here and there. But just wanted you to see that part. And then it's important to note that there have been no substantive revisions for the 24-25 self-assessment, and the maximum score a school may receive remains 78. And finally, we included the links that I mentioned to you there so that you can find out more information if you'd like.
Good evening, everybody. So you could see on the far left column all of our schools down the side. Across the top are those core elements that Peter shared with you, just as a review. You'll see underneath each one of those how many points maximum that a school could receive in each of those elements. The far right column is the total score for each school out of 78, and you'll see the majority are between 76 and 78 points total. And then at the very bottom, The district score, 76.3 out of 78, is an average of the school's scores. So I do want to point out Cambridge, and I want to celebrate them. There were some unexpected, crucial personnel decisions and implications that happened last year. And during that time, various levels of personnel, including Principal Christy Pemberton, Supervisor Amy Finkelstein, they stepped up to support HIB programming. They're commended for scoring transparently the way that they did through those challenges, and also for maintaining the programs, classes, and response to HIB allegations consistent with all other elementary schools. So I know you noticed a difference there between their final score. So I wanted to make sure to point out that that was due to some, personnel implications that occurred there starting around December of last year. We have to celebrate and appreciate our anti-bullying specialists. They really lead the charge for all things HIB and HIB prevention, as well as all of our building administrators. Next steps for us, for Peter and I, we meet regularly with the ABSs. We actually had a meeting with them yesterday, discussed current investigations or investigations that occurred so far this year, trends, things that they're seeing in the buildings, and work that they're doing to address those needs. Peter and I check in regularly, and then discussions happen amongst ABSs and their school climate teams at the building level. So again, the purpose of tonight was simply to share last year's scores with the public, and we'll be back again in December to share more on investigations and that data. And that concludes our presentation.
You're welcome. Yay. Blair. You're
Any
my
questions for
favorite
us?
tonight.
Nice and quick.
No, there's no questions.
Excellent. Have a good night, everybody.
You were my favorite tonight.
Perfect. Awesome job. Peter?
Okay, so the next order of business is board committees and liaison reports. Ms. Khan, I'm gonna wait for you to go last, okay. Nothing with finance? I'm gonna bring you up. Okay, no finance, no business op. Education committee, what we saw tonight, we saw on Monday night in education committee. And then I'm gonna go to Alicia now. Yeah, okay, Ms. Khan for policy.
So we had a policy meeting prior to the last regular board meeting on October 9th, and in attendance was myself, Evelyn Mammon, Kimberly Malloy White, Suzanne Luckborn, David Pulowski, Laura Hernandez, Raja Krishna, and Mike Mitchell. So we just examined the new policy alert 235, which contained policies that are up for first read today. So we also had a discussion on policy 0164, conduct of board meeting, and policy 0143, board member election and appointment. So from the policy alert, we have 11 policies up for first read, and I'm reminding all board members to take a look at them and ask any questions well in advance of our next board meeting for the second read. And then I will reading of policies now. Right, no one else? Okay, so we have policy 0173, duties of public school accountant. This outlines the responsibilities and requirements of the accountant and the Board of Education. We have policy 0174, legal services. These are language updates, no changes in implementation of our requirements. We have policy 0177, professional services. These are minor revisions that were made in the updated administrative code regarding the awarding of contracts for professional services. We have policy 1570, internal controls, and this addresses the requirements for receiving state aid to establish specific policies and procedures on internal controls designed to provide management with reasonable assurance the school district's goals and objectives will be well met. This is policy 1620, administrative employment contracts. So this addresses the requirements of the Executive County Superintendent's review and approval of employment contracts for superintendents, assistant superintendents, and school business administrators. We have policy 6111, special education Medicaid initiative program. So this addresses our district's appropriate steps to maximize participation in the Special Education Medicaid Initiative program. So next we have policy 6220, budget preparation. So the revised administrative code does not change and the current budget preparation and budget submission requirements. So next is 0143, board member election and appointment. So the changes that were made here don't have any impact on South Brunswick. Next we have policy 1636.01, notification of promotion, new job, and transfer opportunities. These changes have no impact on South Brunswick. And we have policy 2422, statutory curricular requirements. And again, these changes have no impact on South Brunswick. So the last policy is 5339.01, student sun protection. So the student sun protection policy was adopted requiring school districts to develop and adopt a policy concerning a student's use of sunscreen and sun protective clothing while outdoors at school and school-sponsored functions, which addresses a district's right to require written permission from the parent of a student prior to the student carrying or using sunscreen at school or school-sponsored functions. And those are all the policies for first read. And again, just ask any questions for the next board meeting.
You heard it. You heard it first here. We have a sunscreen policy.
Yes, we do.
All of you administrators, make sure every student has a written note from a parent before they use sunscreen or ingest sunscreen. Because-
No,
Exactly.
we laugh and it's serious.
It is a policy.
Yeah.
It does exist.
All right, thank you, Ms. Khan.
Thank you.
Board, please, I know it's long, I know it's tedious, read the policy changes. Ask questions before we end up back here next month, okay? Old business, we have none. New business, we have none. And that leads us to our consent agenda review.
So we have a really quick consent agenda this evening. Items, board business, approval of transfers, financials, a bills list. We're disposing some surplus property, some pickup trucks, some cargo vans, a big dump truck, maybe lawnmower. We're approving a comprehensive maintenance plan for our buildings. We have a resolution with the MOESC, which is the Monmouth Ocean Educational Services Commission. We're approving an HIB assessment, self-assessment. We're approving statement of assurance for the HIB self-assessment. We have some professional services. We have a nursing plan. We're also approving a resolution for travel, all listed. Kelly Educational Pricing Agreement for the 26 school year. And we have our personnel, and that's your consent agenda this evening.
Any questions? All right, roll call.
Let's do that. Roll call. Here we go. Consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
Ms. Ferrara and Mr. Mitchell.
Mitchell. Ms. Julie Ferrara?
Accept.
Ms. Alicia Khan?
Yes.
Mr. Raja Krishna?
Yes.
Mr. Mike Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Smitha Raj?
Yes.
Mr. Rajesh Soni?
Yes.
Ms. Deepa Karthik?
Yes.
Ms. Laura Hernandez?
Yes.
Consent agenda passes.
Awesome. And that brings us to our public comments. This is on any topic. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Complete copies of Policy 0167, which govern this portion of the meeting, are available to the public at the auditorium entrance, online, or by contacting the board office. To permit the fair and orderly expression of comments, we ask that participants be recognized by the presiding officer and preface comments by announcing his or her name, place of residence, group affiliations, if appropriate, and by completing the sign-in sheet that's at the podium. Please print legibly, or we may be unable to document your name for the permanent record. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic. Mr. Pulowski will indicate when you have 15 seconds remaining. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participants may address or question board members. No discussion between a participant or respondent shall exceed the 3-minute time limit. It is our plan to listen to each member of the public. Once all questions and comments from all members of the public are made, the Board of Education may respond via email in the most timely and efficient manner available. All questions and comments made will be noted. As always, differences of opinions are welcomed, disrespect is not. Mr. Pulowski, do we have anybody pre-registered?
We have no pre-registrations.
Do we have anybody in the audience that would like to come up? Going once,
Seeing
going
none.
twice, and we will end this portion of the meeting, and every administrator is going, oh, please, please, please. Please note that the next scheduled Board of Education meeting is set for Monday? No, Thursday, November 20th, 2025 at 7 o'clock here. That was from this week, right, okay. Yeah, Thursday on the 20th. And can I have a motion to end the meeting? Smita, Rajesh, all in favor? Aye. Good night, South Brunswick.